Welcome to today's time for word and story, prayer and song. It's St. Patrick's Day, March 17th, and I'm glad you're here. Today's word comes from the 33rd chapter of the book of Ezekiel. The word of the Lord came to me, O mortal, speak to your people and say to them, if I bring the sword upon a land, and the people of the land take one of their number as their sentinel, and if the sentinel sees the sword coming upon the land, and blows the trumpet, and warns the people, then if any who hear the sound of the trumpet do not take warning, and the sword comes and takes them away, their blood shall be upon their own heads. They heard the sound of the trumpet, and did not take warning, their blood shall be upon themselves. But if they had taken warning, they would have saved their lives. But if the sentinel sees the sword coming and does not blow the trumpet, so that the people are not warned, and the sword comes and takes any of them, they are taken away in their iniquity, but their blood I will require at the sentinel's hand. And that reminds me of a story. There was once a small village on a Japanese island with a village of huts clustered next to the sea. And on the mountain high above lived an old, wise grandfather. Grandfather tended the vast fields of rice, the main source of food for the village below. During the day, the villagers would climb up to the top of the mountain to tend the fields, and at night they would go back down to sleep in their huts. Grandfather stayed on the mountain all the time. One night, grandson stayed the night with his grandfather. The next morning, when grandfather got up, he looked out over the sea, and what he saw frightened him to the depth of his being. He called his grandson and asked him to fetch a torch from his hut. The grandson brought the torch back to his grandfather, who then took the torch and began to ran into the ripe fields of rice. And he soon began to set fire to the fields, and soon everything was ablaze. As the villagers down below began to awake, and seeing the smoke rising from the mountain, they all began a fast run up the mountain to see what was happening. Meanwhile, the little grandson was crying his eyes out as he asked his grandfather, "Why are you doing this? What is this all about? Have you lost your mind?" Soon the entire village was gathered on the mountain, and people soon began to shout and question, "What happened, and who did this, and why is our rice all burning up?" Grandfather quickly silenced them and said, "I am the one who did this, and you will know why if you look out to sea." As the people watched, a tsunami, 100 feet tall, marched steadily toward the island. It slammed into the cliff in its thunderous crash, and when it receded, it had taken every last remnant of their village out to sea. As the people looked on the devastation below, someone cried, "We're ruined." Someone else said, "Everything is lost." And then they turned to grandfather and said, "You've done this to us." But someone else, with a wiser mind, said, "No, if you think about it, we may have lost our homes, but grandfather has saved all of our lives." And when they realized what he had done, they honored him above all the people of the village. We're hearing a lot of voices right now, people who are each trying to be a sentinel in their own way. Some of those voices are crying, "Panic!" And some of those voices are saying, "Well, I'm pretty healthy, I probably won't get sick or very sick, so I'll just go about my usual daily routine." Even from our own government, there are many who want to serve as sentinels, but their messages are not always in agreement with each other. which makes these very challenging times for those of us who want to know the truth and to do the right thing. So let's ask some guidance for these days in a time of prayer. Gracious God, there have always been sentinels who have tried to serve you. Some of them we call prophets. Ezekiel reminds us of some of the important work they do. In these difficult days, help us to listen carefully to the words of modern sentinels. And when there are many, and when many do not agree, by your Spirit help us to discern. Even though we have temporarily been forced apart physically, let us use whatever means we have to keep in community and to help each other discern which voices we will listen to. And then, having listened, help us trust. And then, help us act. And then, as you see fit, use us as sentinels too. Amen. The only news update I have today, I wish it was better news. I've been receiving daily emails from our bishop's office, and the one that came last night contained this line: "We have decided to strongly urge our congregations to suspend all in-person worship gatherings through Palm Sunday, April 5th, at least, and perhaps beyond." To that sentence, about all I can think of to say right now is, yikes! We'll just have to see how things go. Tonight is church council, so tomorrow I should have more news that's applicable to what Trinity is about to do. So, until tomorrow, take care, be safe, and be well.